Hey, your financial firefighter here today, Marco Shiro, and today what I want to talk about is what if the housing prices crash 50%? And I can answer that very quickly and we could be done with this, and I'll tell you I do not care. But we'll get into this a little bit more. But let me remind you, I do work for the Honolulu Fire Department. I do work for RE/MAX Honolulu. All the ideas, topics discussed on this channel are on my own. I'm not a financial planner. I just hope to help you get started in your out-of-state real estate investing journey. So also, please hit the subscribe button, like the video, comment, let me know how I'm doing. But let's get started, okay? So, like I said, that is probably the biggest question that I get is a lot of people go, man, how can you be investing during this time? Interest rates are so high. What if prices crash? Everybody's talking about prices coming down, markets crashing. We're talking about the 2008 housing crash. And you know what? I honestly do not care because I am not looking to sell anything right now. And that is really the only time that you would really care what the value of your property is. I mean, to some extent, maybe if you're looking to do a refinance or cash out refinance, yes. However, to keep it simple, I mean, unless you're looking to sell, that's when the value of your property matters the most. To me, it's all about cash flow. It's all about if I can generate income on the property that's above all my expenses. So like I mentioned in earlier videos, I highly recommend, especially for your first few investments or first few properties, is try to get 30-year fixed rate debt. Keep it simple, give yourself some stability, and give you a chance to get your feet wet. But if you cash flow from day one, you are going to be in a good position. Whether rates go up, whether rates come down, whether your property value goes up, whether your property value goes down, it doesn't affect your payment because you're on a fixed rate debt. So let's get back to, everybody talks about the '08 housing crash. It kind of started more around 2006 and went through 2010. However, everybody kind of calls it the 2008 housing crash. So yeah, everybody reverts back to that when they talk about how our housing market is this. Prices have just gone up, it's a bubble, and prices have to come down. So when you look back at what happened in 2008, there's nothing really common to today. We don't have the same ninja type loans, no income, no job, no asset, none of these stated income type loans where people were just putting down what income they said they were having, and then banks were qualifying them, and these teaser rates, these 2 and 28 rates, where basically they had a super low interest rate the first 2 years, and then the payment changed in year 3, and that a lot of people weren't able to keep up with the payments when the rate changed. So a lot of those things that were in place back in 2008 are not relevant today. So that's why I don't see this market following the same path that it did back in 2008. Yes, the market has seen tremendous price growth in the past 2 to 3 years. However, that doesn't mean prices are just going to crash just because interest rates are high, demand is slowing down. It doesn't work that way. It still comes down to supply and demand. So for example, that's also why we want to talk about knowing your market, right? So back in the housing crash in 2008, not every market was affected the same. Some markets definitely saw a better correction of their prices back in 2008. However, if you look at the Honolulu market or the Hawaii real estate market back in 2008 or 2010, prices kind of stayed flat. We weren't really affected very much. And like I said, every market is hyper local and you have to know your market. So for example, Hawaii is a super unique market, right? We only have so much space to provide housing. And also, we attract a lot of tourism here. So we have to keep our islands looking a certain way, right? People come here for the way our islands look and the surrounding environment. So we also don't build in spaces that maybe could have housing, but we're trying to keep it looking a certain way. So for Hawaii, we weren't affected very much in the 2008 crash because it still comes down to supply and demand, right? And we still have a limited supply of housing, available housing in Hawaii real estate. So our prices weren't really affected very much. So that's also why you have to really know the market that you're looking to invest in. So why, if it happened, a 50% price crash in housing prices, why it doesn't scare me or bother me? Because like I mentioned earlier, I am not looking to sell any properties right now. And my rent covers my expenses, so I'm generating cash flow. I mean, honestly, if prices were to go down right now, I'd probably be happy because my property taxes and my insurance would probably go down. Rent probably gonna stay flat. Rents don't just go down just because price values go down. Just because my property value goes down, I don't know of any landlord that has ever reduced his rent because his property value went down. So for me, I'm more concerned about generating cash flow. And at this time, because I'm not looking to sell, I probably would be kind of happy if my property value did go down because my expenses would go down. So that's one way you got to look at it, right? So let's not fall into all this doom and gloom, worrying about price crashes. Will there be price corrections? Yes. I mean, we saw such accelerated growth in these past 2 to 3 years that even if we give 10% back, we're still up maybe 30% for a lot of markets. So, that's a great trade-off, right? So the only people that may be concerned are people that maybe bought in the past, 6 months. If they were on an adjustable rate mortgage, or they weren't, they were banking on appreciation and they weren't cash flowing. So that's why it's super important, and that's why I recommend, cash flow day one. Like that is super, super important. Cash flow day one, and like I mentioned, try to get 30-year fixed rate debt when you're starting. Get your feet wet, get comfortable. As you build a comfort level, now maybe you can look into adjustable rate mortgages, interest only payment mortgages. But in the beginning, I highly, highly recommend to be on a 30-year fixed rate debt, just to give you some stability and get your feet wet and start understanding. Because like I said, man, this real estate game is so much to learn and it's constantly changing. And in the beginning, there's just so much things to pick up on. And give yourself a chance by being on a fixed rate payment. You're not going to worry about it, and then you can just kind of get your comfort level and build from there. So let's talk about rents a little bit, right? So like I was mentioning, that I don't care if my property value goes down. I'm more concerned about my rent, and typically rents don't just go down. So for example, the market I invest in, Pittsburgh, in the beginning, rents were accelerating at a very quick rate. However, rents have kind of flattened out in my market right now, right? The rents kind of have been kind of flat for the past few months. I'm not seeing that same increases like I was when I first jumped into that market. So that's something I need to keep an eye on when I'm renewing leases and whatnot, because the biggest thing you gotta remember is turnover is the key, right? Turnover is probably your biggest expense. If you have a tenant leave, that is always gonna be your biggest expense. So you always wanna figure out ways to try to keep your tenant there as long as possible. So that's why I gotta keep an eye on what the rents are, but rents have definitely flattened in my market. And what I kind of associate that to is there's a lot of studies that have come out that Pittsburgh is one of the more affordable housing markets for home buyers, as far as the wages, prices of the homes. But Pittsburgh is one of the more affordable markets out there. So for rents are not always going to accelerate too high, because sometimes You know, if you can afford the rent and the payment would be, you know, it makes more sense to purchase, right? So that is one of the things where I think rents have flattened, because the market is still very, very affordable. So people were still qualifying to purchase homes. However, now with these very high interest rates in the sevens, maybe more people are not going to qualify, and now more people are going to have to rent. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on how the rents in that market are going to be affected by these higher interest rates. So like I said, you got to know your market. You got to know your market and understand that certain markets are going to be affected more by, you know, price corrections and whatnot. So some markets, it really doesn't affect them very much. So know your market, you know, try to diversify your portfolio. And like I said, let's just talk about that real quick. You know, like I have a commercial property in Hawaii, and the pandemic, you know, really hurt our tenant. His primary business was very tourism based, and you know, during the pandemic, things were shut down. So he really struggled during that time, and we had to adjust our lease with him to accommodate his struggles during the lockdown. And like I said, so that's something you also have to consider is, you know, maybe if you're gonna have properties that are very, very heavily tourism driven or a certain type of industry, you gotta also have other portfolios that can balance that out, where maybe you have tenants, you know, I know I mentioned commercial, but even for residential, you know, you don't want to get all your tenants that are coming from one hospital, or you don't want all your tenants coming from, you know, a certain industry. You don't want them all in the hospitality business, or you don't want them all coming from one military base. So you want to diversify your portfolio and your tenant base if possible, to kind of reduce your risk, right? So if you have some tenants that work at a hospital, you have some tenants that maybe Section 8, you have some tenants that work at the university or whatnot. But that's how you can also diversify your risk and reduce your risk, is by diversifying your tenant base and your portfolio. So like I said, you know, we really got to know your market, understand your market, and know, and like I said, you have to keep and be aware of economics. You know, I hate to say it, but I knew nothing. I really didn't follow a lot of this stuff when I was younger. I just went about my business. But now I realize that so many things affect the way we live, right? Inflation, the cost of goods, you know, interest rates, and we have to stay on top of that and just be aware of that and know how it affects the market. But as far as prices crashing 50%, like I said, I could have kept this video super short, gave you my super quick answer that I do not care, because I'm not looking to sell anything right now. So, you know, that's the easy answer, but I wanted to give you a little breakdown of why I'm not really concerned about the prices of my properties right now. I'm concerned more about the cash flow. So like I said, you know, like I try to tell you, you know, just trust the process, you know, just keep doing the work, right? So if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button, like, comment, let me know if there's something that, you know, you'd like me to talk about or I can help you folks with. But yeah, trust the process. You know, until my next video, keep looking for those deals.